First of all, I want to say thank you so much for coming. Oo ku mahadsantihiin boqolkiiba boqol timeka iyo fursadda aad wada siiseen. This is a very special event tonight. As you know, I have been involved in the community for many, many years. I love giving back. I love tackling challenges. Community development is part of my blood. It's my passion. I see a lot of friends, a lot of family here tonight. And so my group and I, a group that actually I have been involved over the past year, kind of have been planning ways to sort of better develop our community. As you know, the Somali community has been growing tremendously over the years. We've made tremendous development over the past 25, 30 years. We have a long way to go. We have generations that are born here every day, and so it's very important that we do our best and create pathways for prosperity for all of us. And so the group that I'm involved tonight, we're going to talk about this organization that we have put together called the United Somali Alliance. And the United Somali Alliance have been really in the works for the past 12 months. Our purpose has been sort of, it's a very different entity. So it's not your normal social services organization. We have amazing entities in the community that has been doing amazing work when it comes to women, when it comes to young people, when it comes to elders. And so the purpose of this entity, and this entity was actually created by young generations. Either they were born here or they grew up here all their lives. And so, but what they have witnessed is the same thing that I have witnessed, which is there are a lot of disparities, not only in our community, but communities of color across this nation and across our communities across Minnesota, as a matter of fact. And so what we wanted to do was, how do we better tackle that? And so we've done various different events in the last 12 months, talking to stakeholders, talking to businesses, leaders, both in the private sector and the public sector. And so what we came up with was really this unique organization that is going to be the backbone of entities that does great work in the community. It's going to be an entity that builds cohesiveness. Not only that, our main goal and our purpose is really to tackle the system changes that are needed. There are disparities in the health industry. There are disparities in employment, in education, and so forth. And so the purpose of this entity is, how do we come together as leaders in both the private sector and the public sector to tackle this issue, not only in Minnesota, but we've got plans to actually go to Washington, D.C. and make some tremendous strides, not only in Washington, D.C., but really across where we see Somali diaspora communities in the world, and hopefully in Somalia, inshallah. But it starts home. It starts here, step by step. And so, and that's why we came here tonight, to share with you guys our vision, our mission, and so each one of you could sort of ride along, because we've got generations that are born here every day that must live in a better society than us. And so we have to think about 5 years, 10 years from now. And so again, I am happy to be in a room with beautiful folks, in terms of not only backgrounds. We've got business folks, we've got mothers, we've got young generations, elders, and we've got television folks that are leading in our community. And so we're gonna have quite a few folks come out and say a few words regarding what we're trying to do. But before I do that, and before I get myself into trouble, I do want to say I do want to point out a few elected officials that are here tonight, starting with our, all the way from Congress, actually, United States Representative Betty McCollum. Thank you so much for coming. And we do have our Cowley Vang Her. She is the Assistant Majority Leader at the Minnesota House of Representatives. Thank you so much. Both of these individuals have been doing amazing work for our communities across the state. And so it's very important that we elect leaders that understand our needs. And so, and we've got individuals here, and we do have actually Hodan Hassan in the back, who just came. She's also a huge leader in our community. So we've got folks that will be coming in and out. And so thank you so much. I do want to welcome my host, Hodan Duale, who is going to do a little bit of Danta, maybe not. So I do want to welcome her in just a minute. She's going to be my co-host. And thank you so much again. Appreciate it.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us in this momentous evening. My name is Hodan Duale, and as Mohammed Farah said, I'll be one of the moderators. And the first individual I would like to call is Dr. Khadar Chama. He is one of the religious leaders in our community.
Bismillah. I will start with the name of Allah. And I welcome all of you with the Islamic greeting of Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon all of you. I'm standing here as a human who likes goodness, peace, and prosperity for every and each human being on the face of this planet. And I pray to Allah to shower His guidance on all of us. If you go back to the history of the prophets and messengers throughout history, you will find that their job was to serve humanity, protect, and guide them to what is best and just for them. The primary goal of the messengers was helping the mankind, regardless of their color, regardless of their gender, and regardless of their status in society. I personally like and enjoy such kind of gathering because Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had spoken about a particular conference or gathering called Hilf al-Fudul. Hilf al-Fudul was a gathering that took place 20 years of his prophethood. And he was one of the attendees as a young man. The organizers of that gathering were the community leaders in the city of Mecca in Saudi Arabia today. However, 20 years after that gathering, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if they call me again, if those organizers call me again to a similar gathering, I will not hesitate to participate in it. Because the core philosophy of that gathering was serving the community, standing up against the injustice, and speaking on behalf of the voiceless. It was about preventing the persecution of minority in the city of Mecca. Therefore, I believe that's what we need today. I mean, coming together for the sake of the humanity, putting aside our differences, and standing with the oppressed and marginalized groups. Allah has mentioned in the Quran, in the chapter 49, that He has created all of us from one single male and female, and He made us into nations and tribes, so we may get to know one another, not to hate and discriminate one another. Again, I pray to Allah to shower His guidance on us, and I appreciate your listening to me. Thank you very much.
The next person I'm going to call up is Hibaq Duale. She is a young activist, a boss lady. She wears a lot of hats in the community. She's also a board member of this great organization. She's actually one of the original founders of this organization. So Hibak will say a few words, and then we will follow with our elected officials. So, Hibak Tuale, it's all yours.
Assalamu alaikum and Bismillah. I am thrilled and honored for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. On behalf of United Somali Alliance, I welcome and thank you for your attendance and for your support. United Somali Alliance was founded on the strong conviction that with the right resources and support, we as a community can reach new heights and achieve the American dream. Hard work, perseverance, sacrifice, ideals that are fundamental to our own way of life, alone are unlikely to guarantee our success and prosperity. Historical decisions, cultural beliefs, institutional policies, and social rules routinely construct barriers that oppose and interfere with our success and hold us back from achieving and utilizing our full potential. We came to Minnesota, the most unlikely of places to find African immigrants in pursuit of opportunities and endless possibilities. I believe in our state and its ability to make the everyday lives of its citizens better. Despite the cold, I can't imagine calling any other place on earth my home. However, there is a clear need to work with and challenging policymakers to create and promote and implement more diverse, equitable, and inclusive policies. Our mission is to promote system changes by strengthening communities through civic involvement, education, economic growth, in order to achieve equity. Our goal is to dismantle systemic barriers by working closely with our local and state legislators to challenge and reform policies that uphold institutional racism. I often hear this a lot from community members. When white providers who provide the same services in the same industry make unintentional errors, the system actively works with them to give training and tools to help make them stay compliant. Somali providers, on the other hand, are often stigmatized. We are dropped from the network, or in worse cases, we become the subject of investigation that leads to the overcriminalization of community providers. And what they're referring to are simple mistakes, not the premeditated attempts to scam state and federal programs. And I want to make that incredibly clear. With double standards like these, we risk losing culturally competent service providers who are deeply concerned about the health outcomes of our most vulnerable members who depend on these services. As an agency or an organization, we will work closely with providers who feel they are unfairly restricted by the biases and unjust assumptions of those in power and in decision-making roles. The actions and intentions of others will not limit us or pose as barriers to the success of our communities. We will make a stand and demand the opportunity to be assessed solely on our individual merits and conduct, not by the deeds of other members of our community. In addition to that, we will also provide and raise collective knowledge of the ideas of racism, privilege, structural inequalities, and both conscious and unconscious biases so that you may understand how the system works to disadvantage you, and so you may contribute to a lasting solution. Second, we will work closely with decision makers to examine state programs, practices, and policies to identify racism and confront systemic inequalities. Finally, we will engage with institutions, legislation, and other marginalized and disenfranchised communities on a grassroots level to form solidarity towards achieving a fairer and more equitable Minnesota. Individual acts of racism will not be the focus of United Somali Alliance. Instead, we will focus our attention, policies, and practices on the structural reforms required to achieve racial justice in Minnesota and hopefully beyond. To help us understand how a few simple things can combine to create endless possibilities, I am going to borrow from one of the greatest philosophers and strategists who said, "There are not more than 5 musical notes, yet the combinations of these 5 give rise to more melodies than can ever be heard. There are not more than 5 primary colors, yet in combination they produce more hues than can ever be seen. There are not more than 5 cardinal tastes, yet combinations of them yield more flavors than it can ever be tasted." In this very space tonight, I see the most important determinants for change. If the community leaders, policymakers, small business owners, and advocates work with us, I believe together we can accomplish change at the systemic level. Remember, I want to leave you with this. Remember that your voice matters. It is critical that you use it to make change, to elect leaders who put your needs above their own. Your contributions to the state of Minnesota, we may not always get credit for, but they are significant and they matter. Working hard, being dedicated, and making sacrifices matter and should be the standard by which all success is achieved. Together, the American dream can be turned into a reality for our community, and that requires our collective efforts, our creativity, and our willingness to embrace the uncomfortable and lean in and be outside your comfort zone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hibak. You know, one of the things I do want to point out is, as I have been sitting with these young leaders over the past 12 months and what they were able to put together on a wall, and to see that for young people to take leadership is really amazing to me. And one of the things that they may not realize is while this entity is led by folks from the East African community, the product and the end goal will be felt by people outside of the Somali community. Not only the Somali community, but really every community that is feeling the pain when it comes to the disparities around education and health and so forth. And so the benefit is bigger than all of us. And so let's always keep that in mind. And it's going to take more than this organization to do this. It's going to take all of us in this room tonight to fight for our future, literally our future generations. So with that said, I'm going to call on our next speaker to say a few words. She has been serving Congress since 2001. She knows the in and outs of our needs in our community. She has been a fighter for all of us in DC, and our community continues to work with her endeavors as she fights for all of us. And so I'm going to call U.S. Representative from the 4th Congressional District, Betty McCollum.
Thank you. And as I said to you when I walked in, is it cold enough for you? Yeah? Yeah. I am Betty. That's what people call me, so just call me Betty when you see me. I represent the 4th Congressional District, which is all of Ramsey County and parts of Washington County from Stillwater to Woodbury. And it includes our beautiful capital city of St. Paul. And I'm here to extend my greetings to you. And I have some old dear friends in here that I know, but I'm looking forward to making many new friends this evening. So if you live in the East Metro, any of you live in Ramsey County or Washington County? Well, you know what? We're united tonight. So we're here together. So one of the things that Congressional Office does, I'm a social studies teacher by trade, so I'm going to give a little tiny social studies lessons about what a Congressional Office can do for you. So many of you probably have encountered or sought help from your representative, many of you from the West Metro, Congresswoman Omar. So what we do is we help people with immigration. I have people in my office who specialize in immigration issues. Now, right now with all the embassies being closed with COVID, it's pretty tough. But we're collecting information so we're ready to go when the embassies start reopening. We help small businesses in the time of COVID or even when COVID goes away with small business loans. We help people navigate the IRS with taxes. We help people with student loans. And there's so many other issues that we help with. Medicare, Medicaid, making sure that people are able to get what they're entitled to with government services from the federal government. And I'm here with a dear friend and colleague in state government, Representative Herr, and she and I, we have two different lanes, but we merge together to help people become successful. And so I work a lot with local representatives, school board members, and the like. And as was pointed out, the Somali American community here is growing. It is a vibrant diaspora. And I remember, give yourselves a round of applause. So Representative Herr, I remember when the Hmong and Lao diaspora, the Vietnamese and Cambodian and Thai diaspora came here. And I have to tell you, if you drive down University Avenue in St. Paul, when 40 years ago, it would have been vacant storefronts. That diaspora brought so much vitality, business, people trained to become lawyers and doctors and nurses and real estate agents and insurance agents, and it transformed University Avenue. And the Somali community is also doing the same thing as St. Paul, and for that, I thank you for that, because that'll make us so much more successful. And as been pointed out, there's multiple generations here, but the generation I'm most excited about is the next future leaders of local government, of business, entrepreneurs, here in this room, because we need you. We need you if we're going to be successful as a community. We need you if we're going to be successful as a state. I know it hasn't been easy with COVID, especially when, as you were speaking, Madam, about the disparities that we face, the racism that is prevalent, and COVID has created this barrier which has made it harder for us to get to know each other and to support each other and to learn from each other. But you found your way to work through it, right? You're helping your families. Many of you are probably teaching homeschooling with your kids at home now, trying to keep your businesses going. And it's been very, very hard for everyone. But I look forward to the end of COVID. In the meantime, I have worked very hard in Congress to make sure that we have dollars coming into our community. The child tax credit was something I worked on. We worked on making sure that we had enrollment for healthcare. I hope many of you have taken advantage of that, the healthcare enrollment that's out there. But as been pointed out, there's work to do with healthcare, because even if you are enrolled, there's sometimes cultural barriers or translation barriers, or just people don't they don't know how to communicate as effectively with each other. And healthcare is very important. We have to break down those barriers, and we need to work on it. And it is something that I've worked on with the community in St. Paul and in Ramsey County, and I look forward to working with you on that too. But another barrier that we had to deal with before President Biden was elected was a barrier and a division that the Trump administration put up with attacking the beautiful religion of Islam and making a target for people for practicing their faith. And I say this as I had a grandmother who was a practicing Catholic who became a single woman with a small child, and she was a widow. And she would go down the streets of St. Paul, and she was Irish. And in the restaurants where she wanted to get a job, there were signs that she looked at that said, Irish and Catholic don't apply. They had a for hire sign in the window, but she felt the discrimination. And she made sure that her children and her grandchildren were not ever going to put up barriers for anyone like that in the future. And so when President Trump started attacking our Muslim Americans, I had to speak out. It is wrong, and it goes against my faith. It goes against the faith that you were describing, sir, earlier. And it's just plain wrong. And when you see an injustice somewhere, you need to speak out, because an injustice to one person is an injustice to everyone. So thank you for doing that. So I know there's a lot of things we can work on together, and I'm going to kind of close with a little bit more about myself. Before Congress, I never had a passport. I'd been to Canada, but I had never been to Africa. I had never been to Central America. I had never been in the Middle East. And my job became an ability to open up my horizons and to learn more. And the one thing that I have really taken with me, I've had the honor and privilege of watching babies being born all around the world. And I focus a lot on maternal child health, because when you lose a mother in a family, the whole family suffers, right? Fathers are important, but I'm here as a woman, and I'm just saying that when you lose a mother, there's a big hole in the community, there's a big hole in the family. I've watched new parents hold their firstborn, and I know what they were thinking. I want my child to be happy. I want my child to be healthy. I want my child to live a life of dignity and respect and opportunity. And so that's what I bring with me to work every day that I'm in Congress, not only for the children here in the United States, but for around the world. We want a brighter future for ourselves and for our children. We want good schools, we want safe neighborhoods, and we want great paying jobs for the future. So I'm grateful to be here with you tonight, and I look forward to working with you in the future. And I came in and I was wearing this hat when I asked folks if it was cold enough for them. I'm going to close with this. It is wonderful for me to hear Hmong being spoken. It is wonderful for me to hear your language being spoken. Language is the soul of your culture. Language is the music that unites us. And I wear this hat. I wanted a hat like this when I was a real little girl. This is a Norwegian hat. I know only a few phrases in Norwegian, because we as Americans put down and said, no, English is the best language. We know how you should dress, how you should talk, how you should behave. And that was so wrong. So very wrong. So now, as you can tell, I'm a little older than many of you in the room by the color of my hair. I decided that I was going to go back and do the things that I wanted to do to learn about my heritage. And so one of the things that I got myself a Norwegian hat. And they're pretty warm in the winter, because as you know, Norway's an Arctic country. So thank you for inviting me here today. I look forward to our friendship expanding, and I look forward to working with you. And know that something's coming up, and I'm sure you're going to talk about it. The caucuses are coming up on Tuesday, February 1st, and little changes happen when big people show up to make the change happen. So please attend your caucuses.
Thank you, Representative Carly Feng-Her. She's a member of the Minnesota House of Representatives. She's the Assistant Majority Leader of Minnesota House of Representatives, and serve a member of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party. She represents District 62A. Welcome.
Thank you all for having me here tonight. So just a little correction, because I don't want to steal a title from somebody that doesn't belong to me, but I am the House Majority Whip. And so I get to make sure, that we move our progressive agenda forward. And when you're in a split legislature, it's really, really important. I think Minnesota and now Virginia are the only two in the country that are split legislatures. And so, but thank you all for having me here tonight. I spoke with Asha earlier tonight when I came in, and she gave me the lowdown of like why this event is so important. And as the more we spoke, the more I felt like we were kindred spirits, because everything that she was telling me about the Somali experience and her experience personally was the same thing I experienced as a young refugee coming to this country. I was 4 years old when I came. I grew up in America, and I remembered feeling like I was stuck between two cultures, that I was being raised as an American child, but I still had all of my cultures and my tradition, and I had to please my parents the way I would have had I been brought up in Laos. And I often struggled with watching what my community was going through, that we were hanging on to all of these cultural things which were really important, but I could also see that American culture wasn't accepting us when it came to our work, when it came to our education, when it came to our businesses, that it was a big struggle for us. And as I watch what you are all doing with this United Somali Alliance, I am so proud that you all figured this out much faster than we did as a Hmong community. When we got, that's right, you did. And that when we got here, we were focusing, we did everything sort of like in steps. We thought, oh, we should start nonprofits. And then we did that for decades. And then we thought, oh, we should start businesses. And then we did that for decades. And it took us, I'm almost 50 years old now, I'm 48 years old. And it wasn't until I was in my, where we were multiple decades into this country that we realized, oh, we need political power in order for us to change all of these things that is in our system that make it incredibly challenging for us to break the cycle of poverty, that makes it incredibly challenging of us to build wealth and to pass that wealth on. It is incredibly challenging for us to get to the next level of education because we are not at the table making policy. We are not at the table connecting people to all of the work that is being done and all the resources that are out there. I think one of my frustration is that as a legislator, we oftentimes will say, we'll go into community and we'll say, well, we appropriated $10 million to help, X, Y, and Z cause. Like we had a pot of money that went to starting BIPOC businesses, right? And then we're in community, and the BIPOC community says, well, we didn't know. We had no idea that there was a pot of money that was allocated for us. We do not do a good job in government holding ourselves accountable. After we pass a law, we kind of think like, we did it. We did what we were supposed to do. We dismantled racism, but we didn't. All we did was use the same structure to appropriate money, and the communities that needed that did not have access to it. We have issues when we allocate money to help businesses rebuild after the civil unrest, but we do not let our communities know, and so then we get to a deadline, and the money is still there, and no one has applied because we did not do a good job letting our community know this money was there. And so that is a frustration of ours. Representative Hassan, I think, is still here, right? Yes, my wonderful dear colleague, I have so much respect for her. That is why we are working closely together as the Posse Caucus, which is the People of Color and Indigenous Caucus, so that we hold our system accountable. And for the first time in Minnesota history, every committee had an equity component to their bills. That had never happened before, but it was because people like Representative Hassan and myself and the other 14 legislators of color or 15 legislators of color fought in every single committee. And when we say fight, we really mean fight. Like we are arguing and fighting with our colleagues to say why we need to appropriate money specifically to people of color, for education that impacts children of color, for businesses that are owned by people of color, for higher ed for students who are trying to access higher education, that needs to be specific. And that we never had these conversations before. Our majority leader said to me once, we have never had the types of moral arguments that we are having now because all of you are forcing us to have these conversations. And even though it feels really uncomfortable, and someday Representative Hassan and I are so tired because we feel like we're carrying all of this emotional weight with us of our entire communities. But to hear someone say, until you got here, we did not have these conversations, is so critical for us to understand that we are dismantling these systems slowly. And that having all of you doing this work and being engaged in this way will continue to allow us to do that. In that now we know where to go to when we say we have these pools of funds. who should we be reaching out to? And we can come to a United Somali Alliance who can say, we are connected to these 10 other organizations in the Somali community. Then we can do the same thing in our Asian community and in our Latinx community and in all of our diverse communities so that we are speaking directly to the people connected to the community. And so what you are doing is cutting edge. It is on the forefront of something so innovative that we absolutely need because we need your help doing this better. As Representative Hassan and I are pushing from the inside, we need you to push from the outside because the system doesn't dismantle if only one of us is pushing the system. And so it takes all of us, and that if we can do this together, we will be able to change the system and make it a better future for the children that are coming before us. And I am so proud to stand with the Somali community, that any chance that I get to be here with all of you, it shows me that what we built as Hmong people and what we learned, that every new immigrant, every new American coming here is learning faster and getting there quicker because we all build on each other, and that in each other our liberation is tied. And so we continue to have to be here for each other and support each other. And I hope that you don't have to wait 40 years to get to the same place Hmong people did, because that was far too long. And so I'm so proud to stand here with all of you. I want to continue to work with all of you. And if there are ways in which we can be more effective in this work, I am here, Representative Hassan is here, the Posse Caucus is here. And I just want to say one more last thing, is that today we did have our Posse Caucus press conference, which was just, by coincidence, great that we did this, and I get to be here tonight to share with all of you, that we put out our priorities for next year. And that was affordable, accessible housing, it was education, and what was the third thing? Oh, public safety. Representative Hassan's laughing at me. And public safety. Because we decided that as the people of color who are representing other communities, we're now going to tell our colleagues what is important to our communities. We want to drive the policies and the legislation that impacts our community. And so we decided, for the first time, the Posse Caucus put together a press release to say, here are our priorities, this is what our community wants, this is what we're going to be doing. And we hope that we can continue to partner with you so that we can get the work that we're doing out into communities so that then those resources can be utilized. So thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to us being together in this going forward.
Thank you so much. The next person that I'm going to call is somebody that I've watched over the years. She has grown to be not only my friend, to an elected official. She's a fighter. She has done an amazing job for our community. She's a leader for a lot of young girls, a leader for everybody, as a matter of fact. And not only for our community, but really across our state. It's somebody that you can count on, whether you are Somali, whether you are, from any community, because she understands and she's lived herself some of the struggles that we have lived in. And so it's very amazing to have such a powerful young lady who brought a lot of changes thus far, as a matter of fact. And so with that said, I'm going to call my friend and our elected official, Representative Hodan Hassan, who represents South Minneapolis 62A.
Good evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's an honor to be here with you tonight. Marka hore Ingiriis baan ku hadlayaa, balse maadaama dadka roomka fadhiya ay Soomaali ugu badan tahay, I think Soomaalina waan ku hadli doonaa. Summarize in Somali. It's an honor to be here tonight to celebrate with you something very unique. I was sitting there and I was reading the brochure of United Somali Alliance, and the goals are something that, all of these goals sound very exciting, very, very exciting. As you guys know, we came to this country to seek for better opportunities and better life for our families. We fled from war, famine, refugee. We got here, we settled here, not because we love the cold weather, but because it gives us an opportunity. And we left the decades of, surviving, and now we are living. Because when you're surviving, you basically are not living. And part of living, you have to have a voice at the table. For many years, we have not had, people who look like us, who understand our religion and culture who speak the language, sitting at the table, making decisions. I'll tell you guys a story. When I was sworn in 2019, January 8th. January 11, one of my colleagues from the GOP side stands up and talks about daycare fraud and states that Somalis, and this is his exact words, he said Somalis are stealing money from taxpayers and sending it to Somalia to support Al-Shabaab. Can you imagine, like, I just got elected. I was excited. This is my third day at the job. I don't even know where my office is. I keep getting lost from my office to the Capitol. And you have this man who has been serving Minnesota for over 20 years stand up on the House floor. We have 134 members and our staff, and this is being recorded because it's on record, to just say that a whole community of over 100,000 people are stealing money from the rest of Minnesotans and sending it as if all of us support Al-Shabaab, as if all of us have one agenda. So that's why representation matters. I got up, as scary and frightened as I was, and shaken up. And for the record, I corrected that. And when you are sitting at the table, that's the least you can do. That's the least you can do. We are fighting against systems that were created before we got here, before we were even considered human beings, because these systems were created, 400 years ago? 400 years ago, we were enslaved. We didn't have a right to vote. We didn't have a right to be at the table. We were not considered human beings. So those are the systems that we are living in. These are the systems that we have to learn how to maneuver and operate under. Minnesota has the worst education gap in the whole country. We made it to 50. We're number 50. Mississippi is beating us to education. Imagine that. That's how terrible this state's disparities are. I'm not going to discount that this is also a great state that has a lot of opportunities, but its disparities are sickening and disheartening. Today, Black Minnesotans have worse outcomes in home ownership than they did in 1980s. The Somali community, does anybody want to guess what percentage of us, of Somali community are homeowners? Take a wild guess. It's a very small number, it's not 2 digits. Only 7% of Somali Minnesotans are homeowners. We know that home ownership is tied to generational wealth. We know that home ownership is also tied to stabilization. There's also research out there that states that a child who is, whose family is homeowner, and a child whose family are renters, their educational outcomes are not equal. And we also know that education is the only way that we can break the cycle of poverty that our communities are trapped in. If that's the case, and our kids are not getting educated and becoming, successful, members of society, where does that leave all of the generations to come? Prison to pipeline, prison to school to prison pipeline, opioid, guns, gangs, all of those things. So I'm not trying to depress you. I'm sorry that I'm talking about all of this. There is a glimpse of hope. I'll talk about the hope in a minute. But the reason why I'm laying this foundation is just to say that, everything that glitters is not gold. Minnesota is a great state if you are a white person, but it's a terrible state if you are a person of color. And then mind you, Somali community, we're immigrants, we're Muslim, we're Black. All those 3 identities, which I am very proud and apologetically proud, will always be used. Those will always be used to discriminate me and to discriminate you. So to have people in office, at the same time to have others who understand outside of that circle to fight and door knock. There are times that we're talking about issues that impact our community. And guess what? One person will not show up. Not even one person. That's sad. Because when I am presenting about an issue that impacts my community, I want the room to be packed. I want to make sure that the decision makers that are sitting at that table understand those are all of their constituencies, and they have to, respect them, and they also have to be held accountable if they decide to vote against their values. So, all in all, this is a great state, but it will only be great if we work together as a community, if we learn how to maneuver the system, if we learn that our elected officials, whether they're Somali or non-Somali, they need us. You voted for someone. Betty McCollum is running, seeking re-election for CD4. You vote for Betty, you should be able to call her and just say, hey, there's a problem in the community. I need you to show up. I need you to say something. I need you to stand up on the House floor in Congress and say something about what is impacting my community. I need you to call the city manager, the mayor, the county commissioner. Did you know that one phone call from an elected official could make a difference for you? One phone call, a problem that you're having many, many years. One phone call could make a difference. So I am really happy that we came together tonight to create a united, that word just excites me. Because I know a lot of times we're not super united, so that word excites me. But all of these goals are wonderful goals. I want you guys to knock on my door and tell me the work that you're doing. And I also want you guys to put at the table, here is policy proposals that we want you to carry. If I don't carry that, I want you guys to come and hold me accountable. That's how this country works. That's how you become successful. And that's how you get out of surviving to thriving. We need to thrive. We need our community. We need our businesses to thrive. We don't want our business owners to struggle day in and day out. We don't want our mothers to struggle. We don't want our children to struggle. We want our community to thrive. And in order to thrive, we have to work together as community members, as elected officials, as leaders, as advocates. All of us have to work together. And that's the glimpse of hope we're all fighting for. And that's the American dream we want to achieve. And that's why this is so important that you're here tonight. Asalaamu calaykum waraxmatullaahi wabarakaatu. Waa mahadsantihiin caaw inaad halkan isugu nimid. Arrin aad iiga farxisay waraaqdan aan fiirinayay waxa ugu horeeya waxaa weeyaan United dad midaysan. So midnimo weeyaan ereyga ugu horeeya. Soomaali haddaan nahay midnimadu waa waxayna dhibtay weeyaan 30 sanaan rafaad iyo silac ku jirnaa. Marka sidaa ogtihiinba wadankan haddii aadan helin dad xag miiska ku garaacaya, kuwa banaanka ka soo qaylinaya, kuwa community shaqadii ka qabanaya haddaadan helin oo dadku ayna isla shaqaynin wax horumar lama gaaro. And this is the first step. Marka aad baan ugu faraxsanahay inay organization raba inuu policy makers la shaqeeyo oo uu albaabka nagu soo garaaco oo waxaanay community-ga naga hartaa sida ogtiin community-ga dhibaatooyin fara badan ba iska qabaan. Guryaha dhibaato ka qabnaa, businessadeenii baa dhibaato badan qaba oo maalin walba mataqaana wax yariis intii loo wada fiirsado kulligooda wax yariis haddii ay mataqaana meel qalin madow loogu talagalay haday qalin buluuga ku qoraan businesskoodii dhan laga yaabo in la xiro. Something as simple as that. Marka waa muhiim inaynu isla shaqeyno, waa muhiim ina community-ga iska warqabto, waa muhiim dadku inay intay iska rab istaagaan dhahaan waxaan u baahnayna sidan baan ku helaynaa. Marka aad baad u mahadsantiin in arrintan igu soo invite garayseen. Waxaan rabaa ina arrintan ay caaw kaliya ku ekaanin aad sii wadaan, aad noo timaadaan aniga Maxamuud Nuur noo keentaan mataqaana policy proposals so we can implement it and we can fight for it. And waxaan kaloo idinka rabaa hal mid arrimaha Soomaalida ku saabsan marka aan u dagaalamayno anigii Maxamuud Nuur hal qof oo Soomaaliya ma helno oo noo yimaado oo mataqaana ka hadla xitaa. Marka waxaan rabaa inaad caado ka dhigataan haddii aan idin soo reach out garano idin dhahno walaalayaal arrin Soomaali ku saabsan ama business ama waxbarasho baan qabanaynaa inaad at least xitaa mataqaana 1 hour fasax shaqadaada ka soo qaado inaad na soo garab istaagtaan. Maxaa yeelay aniga Maxamuud maanta dhan hadaan kaliya qaylinayno oo isu community-na daba taagnayn waxba ma qaban karno. Marka aad ba u mahadsantihiin, waan aad baan mataqaana idinku hambalyeynaya arrintan. Waa waxa meeshan ku qoran oo dhan waa waxay community-geena u baahan tahay, wax ka maqan weeyaan oo u baahan in loo soo raadiyo. Marka annagana waa idin la shaqeynaynaa insha Allah, idinkana tiina dhinaciina ka wada. Waa mahadsantihiin.
Thank you, Representative Hodan Hassan. And I would like to follow just one more point in terms of the disparity that we have been discussing the last hour. One of the sectors that devastates us the most is the health sector, where a lot of minorities don't have access to health care. So it's something that we really need to work on. So lastly, I'm gonna call our last speaker, then I'm gonna close the event. I would like to welcome AJ Awad. He is a leader and a community advocate. He earned his bachelor's degree from the University of Minnesota in 2016 and his law degree in Mitchell Hamlin School Law in 2019. He has experience in working with a mediator as the Hennepin County District Court, co-executive director of Cedar Riverside Community Council, and a board member at the Community Mediation and Restorative Services. Welcome, brother.
runtii aniga wax ku faraxsanahay ururkan United Somali Alliance qof kasta wuu ka hadlay badana English la ku hadlayay soo hadda wax yar state representative Hodan Hassan actually si fiican u safartay laakiin runtii aniga si u arko Soomaalida shaqay noo tahay inta anaga ku midowno oo runtii si walaashayna dharaadane anaga iska daa qof le kursi la saaraye laakiin intaas aruursano oo dadka oo professionals ka dhalinyarada groupkan oo kale intii la horumarsiyo si anaga noo dadaalaan runtii aniga si u fahamsanahay ururkan oo dhan maxaa weeye generation ka jiilka aniga ka dhashtay iyo kuwa aqoon kale oo hadda runtii energy-ga u leh intii maanta dadaalaan Soomaalida garab siiyaan mideeyaan oo midnimadaasna ku dadaalaan intii ururkan soo saaraan soo aniga maadaama nin Soomaali weyn aad iyo aad u weyn tahayna oo qasabsan inta taageero other thing runtii markii la ka hadlayo anaga as far as the vision of this urur ma aha le dalkan ma aha le Mareykankan I think dad badan markii ka hadlayay ma la xariijinayay Minnesota iyo Somali community runta beenta intii la iska daayay way Soomaalida Minnesota joogo wiligood muxuu ku xiran yihiin Soomaalida dalka joogo ma garateen ururkan wiligood ma ka bixi karto anaga da Soomaalinahay si u dadaali karnaa siya wadankeeni iyo dadkeeni iyo dalkeeni si loo caawiyo anaga soo keenayno resource-ka hadda haasano oo Mareykanka noo fadhiyo hadii walaalahayiin oo xil haastaan kuwa fadlaka fadhiyo so runtii it's a really important and anigana maxaa dhahayaa hambalyo aad iyo aad qof kasta oo Soomaaliyeed inta taageeraan insha Allah.
Okay. I think maadaama ay tageen Soomaaliya baan ku xidhanaynaa shirkii uu noo gabagabo and muhiimadda ururkana basically waxa weeyaan in aan united noqono miiska fariisano say walaashin Hodan Hassan u hadashayadaaba wixii dhaneed no explain gareysay haddaad miiska ka maqan tahay the decision ma gaari kartid waad aragtay hadda dawladdu say businessadeena ay u xidhayaan sida maaragtay hadduu hal qof wax yar uu sameeyo xitaa hadda klinigyadii heer waxa la gaaray even clinic waad aragtay Soomaalida maamooyinkeena waxa la oranay clinic-gaas fiican qof kasta uu isku sheegaya clinic-gaas la aadaya hadday ku arkaan more than 100 visit clinic-ga loo imanaya soo mar dhow xitaa waxa imanaysa in xitaa organization-nadii Soomaalidu caawitaanka u doonan jirtay in la xidho marka really Soomaalida light waa lagu hayaa say walaasheen u sheegtayna waa the third worst state in the whole entire United States uu qof minority ku noolaada Minnesota waxa weeyaan third when it comes to education ka healthcare kana wada ka sii daranba hadday noqoto xitaa federal contract yada 1% ayaa minority-ga la siiyaa imagine Soomaalida waa 1% ba all colored minority community federal contract yada la siiyaa so we need to ururiyada sidan oo kala in aan anagana qayb walaaliheen baa noo fadhiya Hodan Hassan iyo our allies keena in aan la xisaabtano weeyaan we have to be involved in politics community-ga siyaasadda ku jira waa community-ga faa'iideysta weeyaan every sector in society-ga ama state-ka waa loo doortaa wada ha noqoto attorney general-ka wada ha noqoto judges-ka every sector waa doorashay ku jiraan which means waa la xisaabtami karaa if we united marka waa inaan really quwadeena aan tusnaa waa aad baa u mahadsantihiin assalaamu calaykum waraxmatullaahi wabarakaatuh and thank you aad noogu timaateen